Did you know that DUI checkpoints are constitutional? Until they're not. There are strict rules for checkpoints and police officers often mess them up. Find out how. Hi, I'm Marc Lopez, former prosecutor turned defender of the people. We are going to talk about DUI checkpoints. I'm filming this the week of St. Patrick's Day. There are going to be St. Patrick's Day checkpoints all over Indiana. I know for a fact there's going to be some in Indianapolis. Hamilton County has started to have them recently as well. So I hope nobody gets a DUI, get an Uber, get a taxi cab, but let's find out how checkpoints are a problem if they're not done correctly. So I'm not going to talk about how checkpoint invades individual rights. I'm not going to talk about how a checkpoint stops people that have done nothing wrong and messes up their day, making them subject to police search and seizure, even if they're stone cold sober like most people in a checkpoint are. We're not going to talk about all that. Indiana Court of Appeals, Indiana Supreme Court has said checkpoints are legal in this state. I don't agree, but I'm not the law. I'm just a lawyer advocating for the people. So in order for a DUI checkpoint to be constitutional, there has to be count them, six requirements. And if there's deviation, then that opens up that checkpoint to being considered illegal. So let's talk about those six. Number one, whether the checkpoint was carried out according to a neutral plan approved by appropriate officials. So in Indianapolis specifically, there's a handbook, Marion County Traffic Safety Partnership Sobriety Checkpoint. Literally, it's 45 pages or so exactly how to do checkpoints. And it's been approved by Chief of Police, Traffic Safety Partnership has got input with all sorts of agencies, but that's the neutral plan. And the checkpoint has to be carried out pursuant to that plan. Other counties have these plans. Hamilton County has a plan. Every county that does checkpoints in order to get checkpoint funding from the federal government has to have this written out plan. Now, all plans are great until they're not. And just like Mike Tyson said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Plans fall apart in the execution, especially for DUI checkpoint case where not many attorneys actually challenge the checkpoints. You have attorneys saying, oh, you got pulled over for a checkpoint, better plead guilty, instead of actually checking if things are done correctly. So in cases that we've done here at this law firm, we've gone on Court of Appeals, we've won checkpoint cases at trial. We're looking for any deviation of the plan. Some common examples I see, hey, the sign's supposed to be put 200 feet before the nearest intersection so that people can avoid the DUI checkpoint. Hey, you're supposed to do it at a location that has a high incidence of DUI. This location does not have that. There's all sorts of deviations from the plan. Some of the other deviations that I have personally seen, they're supposed to do, once two vehicles leave the chute where they're investigating DUIs, the next two are automatically going to come in. And you'll have officers being like, oh, that's a school bus. Oh, that's a police car. We're not going to do that. No, there's no deviation from the plan. Once people have left the chute, they're supposed to bring in the exact next two, even if it's a bicycle. Sounds kind of crazy, right? That happens. Deviation from plan subject that DUI checkpoint from being constitutional. An unconstitutional arrest, well, guess what? That's going to be a not guilty. It should be a dismissal. Second requirement of a DUI checkpoint. The objective of a sobriety checkpoint needs to be getting impaired drivers off the road. You can't have hidden objectives trying to check for drugs or trying to check for X, Y, and Z, but it has to have a clear laid out objective. Then it also has to be a timing and the location. We have to have a location that has a high incidence of DUI arrests based on officer patrols and also at a time when there's likely going to be people driving intoxicated. So it's not going to be Monday morning, unless Monday's St. Patrick's Day, which it is in 2025, at 2 o'clock, because it's not going to net these impaired drivers. But it's looking more like we frequently see in central Indiana, starting at 9 p.m. till about 2 a.m., or technically until they run out of funding, right? So we have these locations that are supposed to be high incidence, have these locations that are supposed to have more drunk drivers than not. And we see deviations from that again. Last year in Hamilton County, they chose a random church parking lot. I made a video about that. Random church parking lot, not near busy intersections. And who would have thought they got one DUI arrest for, I think, a couple of hundred people going through there. There has to be a correlation between why they're choosing that time and location and drunk driving. And so one of the dead giveaways we see as defense attorneys are very low apprehension of drunk drivers. Hundreds of people go through there and one or maybe two arrests. That's a giant red flag for attacking the objective location and timing of the checkpoint. The third requirement, the amount of discretion allowed to the field officers conducting that checkpoint. Now, the manual for the checkpoint, the Traffic Safety Partnership for Sobriety Checkpoints, has specific words officers are supposed to say when someone's pulled over. Hi, you've been randomly chosen to participate in a traffic sobriety checkpoint. Have you had anything to drink tonight? There's specific things to say. There's specific order of events. There's supposed to be so many officers present. They're supposed to pick 2 random vehicles to go into what they call the chute for the DUI checkpoints. And then once those vehicles are out of the checkpoint, the next 2 are supposed to come in. There can't be discretion because we're infringing on individuals' rights, and we recognize this is an intrusion on our liberties. Now, we do this for public safety, try to get drunk drivers off the road, but it is an intrusion on individuals' rights. So we do not want officers having discretion. Hey, that one looks pretty. Have her come on in here. Oh, I know that guy. Let's mess with him. Oh, let's do this one over here. We don't want none of that. We want absolutely discretion free. And we see everything I just mentioned. I have seen officers, people go by, oh, that's an off-duty officer, let him go through there. Oh, that's a police car, let him go through there. Oh, we're not doing this for a bicycle. Hey, who wants to take a break? Let's do a break. Let's not get the next 2 cars. No. It has to be pursuant to the plan that's neutral, and there has to be very minimal discretion. Things are always going to happen. Someone gives a line back. No, you can't search me. Why should I agree to this checkpoint? That's not always going to be in the manual. So officers have little discretion, but you want and eliminate as much discretion as possible. If you don't eliminate that discretion, if officers have too much discretion, guess what? That checkpoint is now unconstitutional. And we're going to fight for dismissal and not guilty. The 4th requirement of a constitutional checkpoint, the degree of intrusion on the civilians being stopped needs to be the minimal amount possible. I mentioned earlier that there has to have signs that checkpoints ahead. People need to be able to avoid the checkpoint if they want to, and if they notice a sign. And then even if you avoid it, there's going to be a chase car that's going to follow you while you avoid the checkpoint, looking for traffic infractions. But at least there has to be a spirit that the person can avoid the checkpoint. There has to be advance notice of publicity. Usually you'll see this in press releases. Hey, checkpoints this weekend. Hey, checkpoints on these dates. The press release may not say the exact time, but they'll say, hey, the month of March, or they'll announce a weekend during the weekend. Now, I'm filming this on March 7th, and I have not seen any news release for checkpoints in central Indiana. But I do know for a fact there's been a checkpoint every St. Patrick's Day weekend since I've been an attorney since 2006. So Marion County may be dropping the ball. Hamilton County had DUI checkpoints for St. Patrick's Day last year, and I think I saw some where they might have one, some rumor, but I haven't seen an announcement. I haven't seen any advanced publicity. And that's a problem, because by not doing advanced publicity, they're not giving people a fighting chance to avoid the checkpoints. And an avoidability of the checkpoint is something that makes a checkpoint constitutional. Also, the scope of inquiry has to be very limited. Have you had anything to drink tonight? It can't be. Do you have any drugs in your trunk? Have you committed any crime? Do you have any guns on you? We want very small amount of contact. I think one officer has testified that they're shooting for 2 minutes. If they don't smell alcohol, if someone's not saying they were drinking, they don't smell weed, they want the interaction between law enforcement for a checkpoint to be 2 minutes and under. That's the minimal type of intrusion on a civilian. These are all the things that we're looking for and we're trying to attack for DUI checkpoints. The 5th requirement of a constitutional DUI checkpoint is the location has to be safe for both officers and civilians. You can't have no lighting area. You can't have, it's just not safe to stop here, but we're going to do a checkpoint anyway because it's so important to us. It sounds obvious, right? But I have seen officers and I've seen prosecutors and attorney generals get up there and be like, well, the sign wasn't 200 feet from the intersection as required by the manual because it wasn't safe to put that sign 200 feet. We had to do 175 feet. Well, if it wasn't safe, why are we doing the checkpoint at this location? Well, we had permission from the property owner. What? If it's not safe, don't do the checkpoint. So that seems like a no-brainer, but you have an attorney for a checkpoint, you need to attack that because officers mess this up in the execution of the neutral plan. The 6th and final requirement of a constitutional DUI checkpoint is the effectiveness of the checkpoint. Now, any officer worth their salt will tell you if you take the same number of officers, 15 to 20, and they go out and patrol, they will arrest more drunk drivers than any checkpoint. Most recently litigated to the Court of Appeals checkpoint case, Connor case, which I litigated, there was 300 plus checkpoint vehicles on St. Patrick's Day weekend, and they arrested 4 drunk drivers. That's a little bit more than 1%. That's not impressive at all. And if those same officers, and they testified in this case, had gone out there and patrolled, they probably would have got double, triple, even 4 times as many DUI arrests. Now, there's arguments that they're going to make, well, that simply having the DUI checkpoint deters drunk driving, but in that particular case, they also messed up the advanced publicity. It wasn't safe. So there's so many, it's a compounding type error. And if the effectiveness of a DUI checkpoint is not there, that DUI checkpoint, we're going to argue, it's unconstitutional, should be dismissed, should be not guilty. In my opinion, DUI checkpoints are a waste of time, waste of tax dollars, and a waste of manpower. But guess what? They are constitutional and they do happen. And I'm pretty sure they're going to happen on St. Patrick's Day weekend. So keep that in mind. Call an Uber, get a taxi cab, have a friend, walk home. Don't be getting drunk driving arrested. And if you have any questions about DUIs, checkpoints, or Indiana law in general, give me a call, 317-632-3642. Remember to always plead the fifth.